Hey everyone, happy solstice. I am recording this on the 21st, and I just took a drive out to this completely rural area near a lake, and I haven't been in this area before, and so it's pretty secluded though, and you can probably hear maybe some of the ducks. There's different kinds of birds in the background, and on my way up here, I passed two I think they're vultures, like really large birds. They might still be like eagles, but they've definitely got those huge nests that sit like on top of those electrical poles or whatever they are. And I just thought that was kind of like some fitting imagery. And when I thought about what I wanted to talk to you guys about, it kind of fits with these themes that I'm feeling for bringing through themes around like knowing when you're just hitting a bump in the road. It's not meant to like derail your destination or cause you to like take a detour or anything. It's literally a bump in the road, right? That's not something you should really stay concerned about. And another theme here is with this is coming through with this image of this very mythological image that is sometimes called the dweller on the threshold. And you've heard me talk a little bit about this, but basically, this is kind of like an imaginal entity that we encounter when we are really reaching some of our own like internal kind of personal limits, like psychic limits about hitting our beliefs about like who we are, what's possible, what we can really do next. And this image is very real. It's the way I conceive and understand it is it works like a little bit of like a composite of pieces of your shadow and certainly like all your fears, like very deep existential fears. And it kind of like all rolled into one. And it's going to come up like exactly like right before the moment where you would actually like progress beyond that. So literally it's at the threshold. And I've definitely been through this experience in a bad way, like at least once. And then depending on how I look at it, like I'm close to another one right now. And so you can think about this for yourself and ask yourself like what the deepest existential fears for you really are. First of all, if you do recognize that you've been at this kind of place, um, whether or not this may have preceded some kind of dark night of the soul for you, depending on how you, for example, maybe you failed the test, maybe you didn't pass it that time, and then that kind of sent you into your own dark night of the soul. But thinking about some of these fears, for example, a big one, of course, is a very existential fear of abandonment. And then below that, even deeper, is really this essential core fear of what it means to actually be alone. Now, there's some cards, so I paused it. There's a really interesting thematic kind of movement to what I'm kind of channeling through for you today because I spoke about the bump in the road and I spoke about the vultures. I think they're vultures of some type. And then what do you think happens, right? You've also got some roadkill. And what do vultures do, right? They're going to swoop down and they're going to feed on the roadkill. And there's something just very imaginally rich about that image because vultures in particular, if that's what these are, their stomach acids, for example, can dissolve pretty much anything like that was biological, so bones also. And there's just something really rich in that image of like still feeding off what is dead, right? So what is dead is actually still giving life. Like there's more there. So what we see as death is not actually an ending. Like it's continuing to nourish. Literally, like these birds, for example, are not done with the dead, right? It continues. And so I just want to like kind of suggest for you guys to have fun with that image and think about this in terms of your own dweller on the threshold, your own kind of this internal monster. Some people like to call them internal demons, but there's something similar with that, with this kind of like not being done with the dead, right? There's something in there that can still nourish you. You can still feed off of it. Or even more specifically, you can eat it as it were and dissolve it so as to kind of like, that's what you need for like the next phase. That's the nourishment you need for your next phase. You're literally dissolving the dead matter that, either died or represents like your previous kind of phase of this journey, so to speak, on the psychic level. Now, there's something also in here. There's a kind of link, and I'm forgetting what the link is right now, but please, one of you watching this, you can tell me. Between these vultures and some of the stories written by Margaret Atwood. So you can find the connection. But basically, I want to also bring to mind here that quote. I think it's from her. She says something like, I'll paraphrase, but um, the final illusion is to give up the illusion of wanting to be loved. And if you can do that, then you're truly free. Some version of that. I know you've heard it. And so I just want you to think about the kind of image, for example, of love that you've been working with. And the reason I'm talking about this is going back to those core fears, right? Fear of abandonment, fear of truly being alone, right? Because these are kind of tied in so deeply with our desires to feel love or to feel loved and to love, right? And so, what's that image for you? And are you able to use that for new life? Like, what would it mean to kind of eat or dissolve that image, to let go of that illusion, to truly embody the feeling of standing alone, to kind of like empty ourselves out, as it were, of these images of love so that we're no longer like trying to expect or influence or imagine or anticipate in any way how or where or when or in what ways love will show up for us, within us, without us. And so the question is also like, who would you be or what would you be doing if you weren't working with this kind of specific image of love? Whether it's an image you kind of unconsciously feel you have to hew to in order to love yourself, or a certain image of like what it would feel like if you were loved, and so on. And also think about that quote. This is probably the only quote that I would ever accept from, if it's true, if it's actually from Sigmund Freud. Um, how boldly one acts when one is sure of being loved. So just get back into that feeling for yourself and try to use that to help release other images you may be working with. And so I'm going to try to wrap up this channeling by going back to the image of those bumps in the road, literally road blocks, right? So you think about the road you drive down or walk down, or the path you move down on the way as you invest in your purpose and you invest in your soul energy. And then you do hit these kinds of like little bumps, and maybe you do feel like these are like pieces of your image of love, of self-love, of being loved, and they're kind of like roadkill, like they got like they're hit on the side of the road, right? And you've got these vultures in your psyche that can come in and like use this energy still. Like, we're not done with the dead. The dead continues to give us life. And so what if these are also just like pieces of you that you kind of had to burn them off in order to use them as literal fuel to like keep going on this specific path. So let me know if that resonates. I wasn't planning on trying to like bring these metaphors together, but like that's just what's happening in this channeling. And yeah, just think about like what that monster is for you, how it kind of combines certain like all of your expectations together, like some kind of like really core, this is like some kind of really core existential expectation you had, like of a kind of a trade-off that you thought you were making, like I'm going to be here and I'll do this as long as, right? Like I can do this as long as I get this, right? Like what was that trade-off? Are you aware? Can you feel down to that? Have you come to that point where people talk about it like bargaining, like you're talking to God, you're bargaining, you're like, as long as this can happen, as long as I can do this, then for sure I will give you this. I will make sure. And it's kind of like this trade-off. And that's also part of it too. Like that's also in your dweller. But what if you can't get that, right? Then what will your relationship be to love? What will your relationship be to being, right? If none of that could be true, what can you still make true? So let me know if this is resonating, if this triggers some of your own memories or experiences. If it raises questions, drop those in the comments. And for sure, I know some of you will relate to this. You may have very explicit memories of like this kind of struggle with yourself, essentially. And I'll just leave on this note, but the point about recognizing the bumps in the road literally is that you need to be able to recognize your actual destination. So this is why we talk about life purpose versus soul purpose. And soul purpose will take you so much further, right? If you're just running on 3D ideas about your purpose, then it's loud out here, sorry, then the bumps in the road really can derail you, right? And you're going to pull off to the side and this is exhausting, this is too much, like maybe we're on the wrong road. And so there's just something about knowing the difference there and just finally being able to accept like, yeah, this was just a bump because I'm meant to like clear out that block, literally like this energetic kind of thing that was on my road. So let me know if that resonates, how you like that metaphor. And yeah, I'd love to talk about it in the comments. Do give this a like, subscribe if you haven't yet to my channel, and we'll keep talking. Okay.